Okay, I'm gonna check and see if it's going live on my Facebook page. Let me just check real quick. Very exciting. Yep, we're there. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Welcome to my page. If you are new to my page because you saw Michelle and I, plugging this call in other areas, maybe it's Instagram, might be TikTok. So welcome Instagrammers, welcome TikTokers if you're here watching us live or on the recording. Those of you in the American State National Group, welcome if you're watching us for the first time. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce you to Michelle Ford. I had the pleasure of taking a class of hers, a little bit of a backstory. She's been kind of working in the health freedom industry or market, or kind of running the lobby, running the hill, trying to get things changed since 2012. And this message that we're talking today is not politically affiliated. It's not about one side or the other. This is about truth. This is about who we are and who we think we are. And she's going to tell her story a little about where she came from, how she got to be where she is now as a free American woman. And I will share a little bit about my story as well, and how I came to know her, how I decided to change my status as well. And these are all buzzwords. You're going to be thinking, what in the heck are you talking about, Nicole? Because I didn't know it either until I started to do some homework and start to change the language that I use around who I am as a free woman. So with that, Michelle, welcome. Thanks for so much for being on here with me today.
Thank you, Nicole. It's a huge honor, actually, to be able to talk about this, to your friends, your followers, your fans, your family. So thank you for having me on. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to just give a brief introduction on how you kind of came to the realization that being a US citizen gave you very little, if zero, control as to what happened to your children as it related to health freedom.
Okay, this is huge because in 2015, we were fighting a bill called SB 277. And this was a bill that was like the rights stripping bill as it relates to pharmaceutical products being injected into our kids. It attempted to eliminate the parents as decision makers. Essentially, it just basically took them out of the whole process and left the decisions into the hands of the doctors. It left very few opportunities for exemptions. And my oldest daughter was injured by her vaccines when she was a newborn, so I'm aware of what life is like for people. And my daughter was not even as adversely affected as some other kids. So I was one of the, the lucky ones, so to speak. But anyway, there was a health hearing, and my senator at the time, Holly Mitchell, just in passing said a couple of things that really, really, really rocked my world. And one of the things that she said was that we don't own our kids. She literally said, you don't own your kids. And it was really strange to hear somebody say that, because as a mom, I've never actually referred to my relationship with my kids as my owning them. So that kind of caught my attention. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, if I don't, even though I, carried them all those months and I gave birth to them and I was up with them at night and changed their diapers and all of it, like, if I don't, well, then who does? Right? That was huge. That was huge. So I thought, my goodness, she knows something that I don't know, and I'm going to figure out what it is. Because the other thing that she said was that you guys are just people. You're just people. And it was like, wait a minute, I grew up in America where I was taught that this is the land of the free, the home of the brave. We are a government of we the people, et cetera. And so that struck me as extremely odd too. So to hear those two things on the same day left me incredibly interested in figuring out, getting to the bottom of it, because I knew that something was wrong. I couldn't figure out how to get access to my rights. And that was when my journey began on trying to figure it out.
Really interesting that you said the phrase access to your rights. So one thing I think a distinction that people, men and women, need to understand is that we are given our unalienable, or alienable, depending on where you are in the country and how you say that word, unalienable rights given to us by our Creator. And it is enumerated in the Constitution that protects those rights. So having access to them is a really interesting verb. Okay, so
Yeah.
how do we, if there's some piece of legislation and things that are happening, and we're in California, so there's a lot of really highly inflammatory things happening here in our state. My concern is that people don't understand how these baby steps, and this was in 2015 you're talking about, if these baby steps take our rights as parents or our rights as people, the people, away from us to have freedom of choice, whatever that might be. And we are in one of the greatest countries in the world, but there's a huge sort of veil that has been placed over us over time by the language that is used, because we were taught to believe that being a person, an individual, we were taught that we're nouns, right? These titles that we hold, we didn't know that these titles, by being Mrs. or Mr. or citizen or employee, and I'm using some of your language from your class, but these words that we have assigned ourselves, or the government has assigned to us, have legal meanings, not lawful meanings, but legal meanings. And these legal definitions of these terms have really created an opportunity for our corporate government to take those rights away from us whenever they feel like it.
Yeah.
So some of the things that I've had conversations with family friends over the last couple of years is that if we don't agree, you can be left of center, right of center, it doesn't matter who you voted for, in my opinion. However, if we can't agree on the Constitution, then we really don't have a whole lot to talk about. So our country was created as a constitutional republic. So if you wouldn't mind, Michelle, just talking a little bit about who we think we are and how that came about to be this sort of misnomer, if you will, or this misunderstanding that our being a citizen is this greatest ichi thing that could possibly exist. I grew up thinking that. My grandparents immigrated here, right? So we all thought that being a citizen was the best thing on the planet, and congratulations, way to go. So wouldn't you mind commenting a little bit about that and just give a little bit of history behind that word and where that plays into your rights or lack thereof?
Yeah, and this is actually, you've really cut to the chase here, which is fantastic that you did that, because I think anyone who grew up here, being really indoctrinated into this idea that we're free, when really we have evidence all around us that we're not free. So this lie, this perpetual lie, that veil that you were talking about that separates us from our God-given unalienable rights is huge. And even if people didn't grow up here, they come here, by the tens of thousands every year, probably hundreds of thousands every year, in search of access to our founding documents. And you could talk to any attorney and they'll tell you the Constitution is dead. It doesn't matter, right? Unless you're talking to like a constitutional scholar or something like that. The bar attorneys will say, no, it doesn't matter. That's a dead document. And there's even actually a movement to destroy and continue to alter the Constitution. But here's the thing. Here's one of the greatest misnomers about the Constitution, okay? The Constitution wasn't intended for us. It only reaffirms the rights that were already given to us by our Creator. And actually, it is intended to be the contract between the living men and living women that are Americans and their government subcontractors. And what are subcontractors? Okay, because we've got all these different layers of government from, up in Washington, D.C., all the way down to your local, school board and everything in between. So those are all subcontractors. And we've been living in a paradigm of a top-down government where the only people at the top are this very, very tight-knit group of corporate, elite fill in the blanks. Some say cabal, some say, it's the secret societies, and really it is a combination of all. And it's the world bankers, et cetera, et cetera. It's the armed military. So at the end of the day, our founding fathers, right, when we actually need to go back to the Mayflower Compact, when, there was a group of pilgrims that were escaping religious persecution, and they came here in search of ultimate freedom. And they knew full well that we were going to have to work together, and we were going to have to embrace our differences, but have a common goal in mind, and to be free and to preserve each other's rights. Right. Which is why we have
individual rights, right?
Quote, individual, which is a whole legal term in itself. But yes, to have, one-on-one rights, where my right, I can't take away your rights, no matter how many people I gather around me. There's no such thing as consensus governance in the world of a republic, right? A Republican form of government. And I want to caution any of your listeners who might have immediately thought that I was talking about a political party. In fact, that's part of the word magic. That's part of the obfuscation and lie and the hiding of the truth. It's, they created this two-party system to keep us confused and to keep us going back and forth, fighting against one another for that, that coveted 51% or that coveted 2/3 majority. But, when you take the opportunity to restore your own status as an American, as opposed to a US citizen or a citizen of the United States, right? Because those are two different statuses. One is territorial in nature and the other one is municipal in nature. So once you get through that veil and you have access to, seeing the man behind the curtain and going, okay, it's time to click those ruby slippers and get back to the real world, and become the American that you always thought you were.
So you said a lot there. So there's a lot of things and distinctions that you made. So the title of our video is "So You Think You're an American?" So let's talk about what it means to be a U.S. citizen and a citizen of the United States. And what you mentioned there, for people who are listening, maybe you're taking some notes, is that there's territorial and municipal, different types of citizenship. And then there's the rest of us on the land and the soil of the United States of America, meets and bounds America, that don't have that status, and it's defined still. But if you could unpack that just a little bit, and I know you had some slides you wanted to share as well, so whatever you want to kind of unpack that would be great, just so people understand what we're talking about, so we're all on the same page.
Yeah, this is really great. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to share some of my presentation. So here's a slide that I often share on my Thursday morning calls. And that is, just asking people to ponder this question, which are you? Are you American? Are you a US citizen? Or are you a citizen of the United States? Or are you all of the above? And the reason I throw in that number 4 option is because oftentimes when I ask people if they're American or a citizen of some sort, they usually say, I am an American citizen, which, citizen by nature is beholden to a role, right? So whether it's an uppercase C citizen or a lowercase c citizen matters, right? Because an uppercase C citizen is a citizen of one of the several states, which are the states of the Union. And, growing up, I never heard of someone called a California state citizen, right? I have heard of a California resident or state of California resident, but I had never heard of state citizen, uppercase S, uppercase C, but that is a proper title for someone who is, functioning in the capacity of restoring the California government, the assembly, the state assembly, not to be confused with the district assembly, okay, which is very challenging.
Right.
Because the territorial and municipal government subcontractors have mirrored everything that America was intended to be, and our layers and our form of government is very, very simple. It's actually common sense it's based on common sense, and it's also based on the laws of nature, nature's God. And I remind everybody that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, right? We all remember that supremacy clause from high school. But by virtue of, inland piracy, I'll say, and personage and identity theft and conversion, unlawful conversion, people have been, changed from having their birthright status as a living American to being one of a title holder called a United States citizen, which is a territorial, or a citizen of the United States, which is a municipal. So this conversion.
Can you share the distinction? Do you mind sharing the distinction between California state versus state of California? And I mention this, folks, because you can verify this information on Dun and Bradstreet.
Yes.
You can verify the corporate numbers, if you will, of the business of California, or the business of running the United States, the business of running every county, every city. So if you wouldn't mind just unpacking that just a little bit, that would be great, so that people kind of maybe can follow along a little bit when we're talking about the state of state, or California state, or any state you live in.
Yeah, this is actually a great topic too. So, I would just invite anybody to pull up a map of the quote United States, or a map of the United States of America, right? And you'll see, there you go, from sea to shining sea, and northern border and southern border, right? It's all there. But here's what you'll find. Okay, this thing that they're calling the United States is, that's a whole other topic. But to focus in on what you were talking about regarding the states, each state will have its name, right? So California will say California, Arizona, Nevada, Ohio, Texas, Florida. It'll say the land geographically defined area known as California, let's say. Okay. Then if you look up state of California, right, that is a location up in Sacramento. It has a defined building. It has a specific address. It has a corporate identification number. It has a tax ID number. And it is a corporate office, frankly. It is not what we think of when, most people, when they hear state of California, they actually think of the geographically defined area known as the state. But there's a distinction, right? A lowercase s state is the geographically defined state, but an uppercase s state is the proper noun name, right? That's the corporate identity name, state of California. And the same goes for county of fill in the blank, city of fill in the blank. I used to think that my city of, right, where I grew up, city of Culver City, was this geographically defined area. But on my learning journey, what I've come to find out is no, city of Culver City is a corporation, and it was incorporated in 1917. Now, what's wrong with that? Shouldn't a city have to be incorporated, right? Don't they have to file a tax return? But it's actually more than, it's actually much more than that, because these states of states and cities of cities and counties of counties, and frankly, states of the United States, right? It's a franchise hierarchy situation, right? Where the capital in Washington, D.C. is the main office, so to speak. And then the franchise offices have their capital building locations within each geographically defined state. But because of that very simple distinction, that's often sometimes hard to grasp, because of that simple distinction, we think that just walking outside of your door, you're in the United States, but actually you're not. The United States exists in very distinct territories. And,
yes,
because of this confusion, right? When there's talk about jurisdictions and all of that, the jurisdictions are not necessarily easy for the average American to realize. because they think the jurisdiction is the geographically defined boundary, sort of like when you order a pizza from your favorite pizza joint, right? They have on the map, they have a certain
Right.
boundary, a certain radius, and that, that's their little jurisdiction. And so we think the same applies to the geographically defined area as a means to control us. But that's not actually, the heart of the matter. The heart of the matter is that people are running around thinking that they're American, right? You think you're American.
Right.
In your heart, you're American. In every cell of your being, you're American. But on paper, you don't have access to America. You simply don't have access to America. And that's because of what Nicole is holding up right now,
Right.
which I can stop the screen share so that you could show that.
And
That is,
y'all can't see that. So this is where this was the aha moment for me. I was reading, one of Anna von Reitz's books, actually several of them, and a few others, and attending some classes, and I could not figure out why or how this happened. So Michelle, thank you so much for explaining sort of this municipality or this the way that we've sort of been deceived. Okay.
Right.
And for those of you who are just thinking at this point, I'm not really following because it took me a long time to understand this. Okay. So I'm not expecting anyone to just magically accept everything I'm saying and what Michelle has said as fact or truth. I want you to go do your homework. And for those of you who are thinking to yourself, well, gosh, I didn't really think that much of my rights before. It hadn't really occurred to me because my life hasn't changed that much. But what I want you to know is that as things unfold, and if you aren't paying attention to what some of those things unfolding are, in particular for states like ours, like New York, and in other countries, they're all set up the same way. Okay. So what you need to know as a person, as a man or woman living on California or wherever it is that you live, we have been kind of plucked out of who we were when we were born and placed into this territorial area called Washington, D.C. And I know this is going to sound really strange because when I explain this to some of my friends, they legit think I'm crazy. And they're like, this is not a big deal. I don't know why you're even thinking about this. Well, the bottom line is this entity, right? Because corporations can't do business, if you will, with living men and women. You can't bank with a living man or woman. You can bank with their entity. So when we're born, and when did this start, Michelle? What year did this start? This certification?
Oh goodness, I actually don't remember that off the top of my head. I'm so sorry, but it, obviously the gateway.
Early 1900s.
Yeah, early 1900s for sure. But the gateway drug for it was the 14th Amendment. So yeah, where this idea of equality came in.
So this is how you identify your 14th Amendment status, right? So if you say you're a citizen, you got to prove it. Well, how do you prove it? Well, you prove it with your birth certificate. And I want you to look at the language that I'm using, or listen to the language that I'm using. A certificate, this is on bond paper. For those of you who have insurance to indemnities, or you have a pink slip for your car, all of those are vessels, right? So they're tangible assets, okay? And they put it on bond paper because it has value to it, right? So this has value to someone, but we'll unpack that another day. But what this establishes for us is that we have now been taken out of being a baby, an infant, a boy or girl, into an entity, if you will, called a minor. And I want to bring back what you said at the very beginning of our conversation, Michelle, is that this senator told you that you don't own your kids.
Right.
And you're just people. Okay. So that struck a chord with me. The first time I heard your class, I was like, oh my God, who does own my kids? What do you mean? And who owns me? And so if you start putting some puzzle pieces together, this piece of paper is when we choose as parents or mom and dad, mother and father, we then become a legal entity called a parent.
Right.
That's a legal word. So that legal word then just surrendered our right to have full control, if you will, or manage decisions for our children. So if any of you have ever had an issue with CPS, or if ever you've had someone tell you, like the laws that are happening in California, that you don't have a right to do these things because you gave them the right to do so with this document, which is your birth certificate. So
Right.
again, I've unpacked a lot here, you guys, I'm sorry about that, but it's difficult to explain in 20 minutes. So Michelle, you've done a beautiful job of unpacking some of this for us. And I would like for you to tell everyone your passion for restoring the Republic and how they can learn from you and where to reach you. And I'll put information in the description on how to get in touch and do what we need to do.
Oh, that's awesome. So I'm the coordinator for the California Assembly on the land and soil jurisdiction. We are assembling under the fiduciary and the proper the United States of America with a capital T, right? The instrumentality that is bringing forth an active General Assembly of all 50 states. So we are all 50 states assembling under a lawful summoning authority, and we are in the process of doing this right now. So in order for people to want, if you want to attend the whole class, every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific time on Zoom, I do approximately 2-hour and 15-minute presentation, and I try to cram like 7 years worth of learning into the most urgent need to know information, so that people have at least the bare minimum to be able to move forward with their eyes wide open and make a choice for their future and the future of their children and the ones that they love that are under their care. And so the meeting ID number for that Zoom is 310-621-3566. And so if anyone has a Zoom account, they could simply pop in that meeting ID number and join in on the class. And then it's of course followed by about a 45-minute Q&A, a live Q&A, and people from all places on the spectrum of this learning journey about freedom and restoration of America can hop on. I have some seasoned people that come back for a refresher and ask questions. So really, wherever you are on this journey of freedom is totally fine. And I welcome you. And I would love, love, love to have, your audience show up, because guess what? I can't assemble California alone. And it doesn't require a majority. That's a democratic mindset. We are a de jure, which means lawful republic. And what we need is enough. We don't need a majority. We just need enough. Yeah.
Right. Well, and I guess kind of the bigger picture here, guys, is if this is resonating with you, or even if you're on the cuff, just absolutely rejecting this, because I did it first. Okay. No one had to talk me into it until I started doing my own research and validating what in the heck I was like. Anyway, so if this is resonating with you, and if the first off the cuff feeling is, this isn't for me, I think you're crazy, I cannot even fathom that I don't have rights, or I'm not who I thought I was, then you need to do some more homework and reach out to me, because I want to connect to you. So if you aren't able to be on Michelle's class, we have an email list, so you can text Americans with an S to 22828, and you can get on the email list and you can watch all the recordings. You can kind of see what in the heck we're talking about. We're going to give you resources there. There's all sorts of links kind of in one place, and it's a great tool for you to start unpacking some of this. It took me several months to really read, figure it out, and once I discovered this issue for me, once I could validate that all of the things that I had been hearing were true, I felt compelled to no longer participate in that system. And because of that, I now know who I am as a living woman and what that means for me, and being self-governed. And over time, over the last year, I I have learned even more, and I want to try and help you come to this baby step learning process and ask lots of questions, because the more people I talk to, the more I know that they really thought one thing and they start to think about the bigger picture, which is our children. What kind of country are we going to leave our children if they don't have their rights protected because they are being stripped every day? And if we don't pay attention and we don't take action to do what we need to do, then peacefully, mind you, I'm not talking about guns blazing. We are peaceful people, right? So in any event, I just want to thank you all for watching today. I am recording this. It will go on my YouTube channel. We will come back again and unpack other parts of this. Michelle, thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful for you and all the work that you're doing. I just can't even express my gratitude for your energy and for your light in this area, and for your commitment to restoring not only California Assembly and getting things moving here, but just your faithful education every week to helping people come home.
Oh my gosh, thank you. And you're welcome. You're welcome. We really are, you know, it's cliche, but we really are all in this together. It's just a matter of making sure that people have the tools that they need to get it done right, so that they don't keep fighting in the political realm. It just doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. Thanks for doing this.
Right,
It's a great
right.
public service.
All
to be
right.
able
Well,
to
thank
get
you
it
so
out.
much, Michelle, everyone.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you so much. Yeah, I interrupted you with this satellite signal.
That's okay.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you all on the next call.
Bye.
Let's the live stream. There we go. Stopping that.